No, I hear you, and I don't know with the lack of excitement from the offense. Was that really
How excited are
on
you
the
going to
plate?
get about an offense with Andy Dalton?
But look at all the rest of the weapons for me around you. You can still, and they just weren't used in the right way. I don't know why things didn't work with Alvin Kamara more. I don't know why things didn't. I guess I can't say that with Jawan Johnson. He had a heck of a year, but Taysom had a decent season, obviously. Uh, but there were still more instances down the stretch. You wanted to see Olave stretching the field and Rashid Shaheed as well stretching the field more. And I understand they weren't pushing the ball as much with a guy like Dalton, but you could with Taysom at quarterback.
The Saints had the second most 40-plus yard plays in the NFL this season.
Second most? I would never have guessed that for sure.
They had 14 of them. Now, they didn't have a ton of 20-yard plays. Like, if you want to look at like 20 to 40, I don't think that they were up toward the top there, but they did have a lot of long connections.
We
And I
just
mean, you're
seem to
talking
have
14. That's the problem with designing your offense around big plays is, 14 was second in the NFL. And you have 17 games. So you're talking, you just do the math there. That's less than one per game. And you are up toward the top of the NFL in that metric.
I just feel like the roster's got a lot of guys that are yak gods, and we haven't really utilized. They didn't really utilize that aspect this past season, at least.
No, I agree with that. Like, I think it's like if you want to get excited about an offense, you don't hand the keys to the 35-year-old guy who at his peak wasn't exciting. Like, it's a very ho-hum, like he's going to run the offense, he's going to do it well, but it's like it's not going to be a dynamic offense. I just think that this system this year didn't work, and that's why it's frustrating to see them stick with it. Now, one thing that did work was Rashid Shaheed. He was not used enough early in the season, but he was later as the season went on. I think you were able to incorporate him more into the game plan. One of the reasons that I think it's difficult to utilize that guy as early was because he's not familiar with all of the things that he needs to do, right? He's learning on the fly. He didn't have a full training camp. He didn't get any snaps in the preseason. So when you finally find out about him in week 6, then you're like, well, what do we do now? Like, we have to incorporate him. And so I think you saw throughout the course of the season that he got more familiar with schemes. And the numbers that he was able to put up were very impressive. And so you look at like yards per reception, he's going to be under the floor of most of these stats because, they're going to be set at like 50 targets, but he only had 34 because he wasn't used enough in the season. But so he had 34 targets, 28 catches, 488 yards, 2 touchdowns. Yards per reception was 17.4. That's number 3 in the NFL if you just put the floor at like 25 targets. Jalen Waddle is 18.1. Gabe Davis was 17.4. Yards per target, 14.4. That would be number 1 in the NFL. Jalen Waddle at 10.3. Darius Slayton at 10.2. Yards after catch per reception, that's Rashid at 6.3. That's number 5 in the NFL. Guys ahead of him, Deebo Samuel, Rondale Moore, Jalen Waddle, Christian Watson. Yards per route run, 4th behind Tyreek Hill, Laviska Shenault, who I think the Saints single-handedly helped that stat for him. And Justin Jefferson, 2.62. 0 penalties drawn. 0 penalties committed. So, like, he didn't false start. He didn't get offensive pass interference. He didn't do anything stupid. And then 0 interceptions when targeted. The other thing, passer rating when targeted, 138.4. That's second in the NFL behind only McCole Hardman. And I think most of Pat Mahomes' receivers have a pretty good passer rating when targeted because he has a pretty good passer rating all the time. If you extrapolate his pace over 100 targets, which is not a crazy number, it's about 6 targets a game if you play all 17 games. You're talking 82 catches, 1,435 yards, 6 touchdowns. So, like, one of the reasons that I think Pete Carmichael was able to save his job is that he was able to build Rashid Shaheed throughout the course of the season and then at the end, you're talking like 5-6 catches a game. He's running enough routes to be an impact. And so that's something you're going to try to build on. And the big play ability of this offense, despite being capped by the quarterback, I think, was still there. So I think those are some of the reasons that you kept him around, because you have to find reasons for optimism. Otherwise, it doesn't make sense.
The reason why you kept Carmichael around?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I know it's real easy to be critical after this season, and there were obviously some games where he was pretty masterfully at calling things, but I would say for the most part, we were left more on the end of wanting, and I think that just shows you too from the offensive production just wasn't up to par this season of what we used to expect from these Saints, and it was definitely nowhere near that. The past 2 years, offensive productions did big time, and yeah, it's amazing what happens when you have a Hall of Fame quarterback retire.
Yeah.